Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife review for you. Today, we have the brand new Kansept Accipiter. This is the full-size one. It does come in a smaller version as well. This is the 3.5-inch blade version. And yes, I do know that I am pronouncing that correctly because it is a kind of bird. It's a sort of hawk. So I looked it up on the interwebs, and since it's a hawk, they have the actual proper spelling on Wikipedia and stuff. So this one I actually know I'm saying right, even though it's kind of a complicated word. I'm going to do a review plus a little bit more on this. Before we get into the full review, we're going to talk about this knife a little bit, and then I actually have been sort of involved with this for a little while. I got the prototype several months ago, and they asked if I wanted any changes. What would I change if I changed anything? And they did all of them, which I think is really cool, but I'm going to bring out that prototype and show you so you can see what changes they made. And I just think it's cool. They're very reactive like that. There's a few of us reviewers that Kansept is sending knives to and getting our feedback, and they are very, very receptive to it and doing a pretty kick-ass job of making sure that stuff actually makes the production models. So yes, this is the Accipiter. As I said, it does come in two different sizes, a 2.8 or a 3.5. Comes with a few different inlay options and a few different finish options. You can get it with micarta inlay that's a little bit cheaper. This is $204, I believe. The micarta version with this beautiful carbon fiber is about $204. I think the micarta versions are about $10 cheaper. There's also copper inlay versions, which you will see. That's what my prototype was. And you can get it in a regular copper or a like patinaed copper. It's your choice. And then also in the small, at least, there is a beautiful Damascus inlay version. But I wanted to try the full size because I wanted to compare it to my prototype. So that's the one that I got. But yeah, the carbon is beautiful. It is very, very nice, kind of raindrop sort of carbon. I don't know how else to describe it. Really, really nice looking. Only on the show side, not on the lock side. The design, overall shape, I had a couple people on Instagram compare it to the ZT-0470. I kind of get that. It does. I've had an 0470. This doesn't feel like an 0470 in the hand at all. It feels like a much bulkier knife, which it is a little bit larger, but it just feels beefier as well. And I think it's a lot more swoopy than the 0470 is definitely much more angular. The zero tolerance 0470 I'm speaking of, by the way. Blade shape, maybe it's kind of similar, but it's not really that similar. It doesn't have the 0470 doesn't have this flat on it or anything. I don't know. I guess I can see some resemblance, but I don't think it's as dramatic as some of my commenters very loudly proclaimed. I think it's actually not really that close. Maybe from a distance with one eye closed, maybe, but yeah, it's not really that close. When you're making a nice, like, kind of, even though this is a pretty large knife, gentlemanly sort of knife with a carbon inlay that you want to take up a lot of real estate with, they're all going to kind of look the same. And it's just a simple drop point blade. It's not like that's a unique blade shape to the ZT-0470, but yeah, beautiful design. I really do like it, and I think the price is dead on. Kansept is doing really good price. S35 VN steel, by the way, if I didn't mention that. So here is the prototype that I got. This is the, if you look on, this would be the patinaed copper inlay with the PVD. One change you can see right away, and this is the one that I complained about the most, was the lanyard hole. So this one has a proper, lanyard hole built into a really nice little backspacer. Very well executed, but also very uncomfortable. Not very uncomfortable, a little uncomfortable. I was jabbing in my hand a little bit. It's fine for most people, but you can feel it a little bit. And you know me, don't like lanyard holes. So of course I complained about the lanyard hole. They did this, which is great. They just put the little lanyard pin in there. Still that same classy, well-executed little backspacer. I think that's a great solution. Worked out well. Little tiny thing, and this is a prototype, so that's why it's been a prototype thing, but it was a little sharp. Up here, I actually took it apart and filed that down a little bit. A little sharp there. That does seem to be a problem I'm seeing more and more. I don't know, I've had a few knives I've complained about that with. Just where your finger lands, it was just a little sharp. This one out of the box, not at all that way. Again, that might have just been a prototype versus production thing. I don't know. Other change I suggested, which is really hard to tell, but I did measure it, and it is different. On the pocket clip, if I can get this, on the production one, there's just a little bit more space. Just a hair bit more space. That works out really well, just because getting it into thicker jeans, if you're wearing something with a reinforced pocket, like, you know, any kind of tactical jeans or anything like that, you're going to notice that little bit. This was a pain in the butt to get in and out of 511 tactical jeans. This one is completely fine. So it's a tiny little, I mean, it was like half a millimeter difference in the height, but it did definitely make a difference. Now let's do some specs and some size comparisons before we go any farther here. As I said, you have a blade length, we're going to go over here. I have a blade length of 3.5 inches, overall length of 8.25 inches, blade thickness of 0.14 inches, handle thickness of 0.49 inches, and a weight, according to my scales, of exactly 4.5 ounces, which is exactly what they claim. And it gets a golf clap, but that's a little heavy, to be honest with you. We'll talk about that more when we get to the carry, but a little heavy for a knife this size. Not insane, but just a little bit heavy. Size comparisons, bring out the usuals first. You have your Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and the Para 3. You can see it's a much closer, in this version, much closer to PM2 size. Again, there is a smaller 2.8-inch blade version, which is also slightly less expensive. And then we will bring out a couple of Benchmates here. Bring out your full-size Griptilian and the full-size Bug Out. Again, you can see closer to a full-size grip. Now we're going to bring out a couple of more, I guess, higher end Chinese titanium knives. We have the Gava and the Riot Coyote. And then I almost forgot to bring this one out because this is also a front flipper. Bring out the Riot Bushido, or the Shibuti, as it's become known here. It's much larger than a Bushido. And then lastly, I'm just gonna bring this out. I have not done a review on this yet. This is another knife that Kansept sent me along with this one, and it's very interesting. It is it's called the Delta, if I remember correctly. I have to look at the name on it. Delta. This is a very interesting knife, but you will see a full review on this. It's kind of a wild child. Also has front flipper action and a flipper tab and thumb studs and all kinds of stuff. You'll see a full review on this. It's just so wild. It's honestly taken me a hot minute to wrap my head around. But pretty cool knife. Now let's talk about this blade. It's pretty darn good. About 17, 18 thousandths behind the edge. 18 thousandths at the thickest point, like 16.5 at the thinnest. We'll just call it 17, 17.5, something like that overall. Pretty thin blade stock. Razor sharp out of the box. Slices really well. Still has a pretty decent tip on it. It's not, it's going to look thinner on camera because of this nice crowned blade spine. Makes it look a little bit thinner, but a pretty good tip. Not going to want to go prying on stuff on it, but don't do that anyway. Works pretty good. I do love the blade on this a whole lot. S35 VN, and so far I've had a whole lot of Kansepts, prototypes, and production ones, and they've all been pretty good on the edge retention. They feel like S35 should feel. So no complaints there. Ergonomically also outstanding. Like I said, on the prototype, they had that little hump. That's gone. And I really like it now. It is extremely comfortable. The jimping back here is more for the flipper tab. I wouldn't mind if that carried forward just a hair. But where your finger lands is this beautifully crowned spine, so it still feels really nice. Yeah, you can't feel the transitions between that carbon and the titanium at all. It's just a really, really, really comfortable knife in the hand. Absolutely, for sure. No complaints there. As far as the carry goes, like I said, pretty good. The weight is the only thing. It's not a heavy knife. 4.5 ounces isn't crazy, but just for this size, there's no flipper tab or anything. So That's fine, as you know, as far as getting your hand past it. It's pretty narrow in the pocket. It's pretty easy to carry. It doesn't take up a crap ton of room. That little front flipper tab sticking out on the bottom, I've never found being a problem as far as, you know, jabbing against stuff in your pockets or anything, because you can see the shape of an average pocket. Stuff's going to wind up way down here. It's probably not going to be up there jabbing against that, so no real worries. But yeah, that pocket clip has improved a little bit. It's not dramatic, but just a little bit, and I think that that helps it out a whole lot. Now, as far as the action goes, it's pretty darn good. I have not taken this fully apart, but I have dribble a little lube in there, but that's about it. But the front flipper is pretty easy to use. It's not the best. It's pretty good if I compare it to the Bushido. The Bushido's a little easier, but this is still a pretty easy front flipper. If you are intimidated by front flippers, this is not one to be worried about. But it is very drop shutty. And again, the front flipper works pretty good. You can't do anything else, you know, you can't really reach around it or anything like that, but you can do the conventional front flipper the way you're supposed to do it very, very easily. But yeah, action on it is really good. No complaints there. Actually, not many complaints about this knife at all. I really like the look of it. And it's the only complaint I have is it's a little heavy. They did some milling, you know. Obviously, they milled out to put this carbon fiber inlay in, but there's definitely room that they could have done some on the lock side. I think that would have helped out a whole ton. Not a whole ton, but you know, maybe an ounce, and then it would be really good, or half an ounce even. It's just a little bit too heavy. I think the price is right. I think it's a beautiful design. The inlay is gorgeous. I would love to see the Damascus one. I had another Kansept previously with some Damascus on it, and they do beautiful work with that stuff, so that would have been cool to see. But well-priced, fun, classy but large front flipper. If you want something smaller that's classy, period, then, you know, get the 2.8 one. I'm probably going to try to maybe get one of those in the Damascus just to check out the Damascus and just to see how the smaller one is. And if I do, you will see that on the channel. But so far, just this one, and I'm pretty happy with it. I like the prototype. I still carry the prototype, even though that little hole it bothered me a little bit. But I still carried it, and this one I will carry more. Obviously, the copper one's even heavier. So if you go with the copper, just keep in mind it's going to be heavier. I don't know what they weigh, but again, I bet it's probably 5.5, 6 ounces. But hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.